Good evening, everybody. Welcome back. I'm excited to announce the title of episode 9 of Comic Relievers. We're calling tonight's show Consistency. That is for obvious reasons. Um, I can't even believe it. This is 2 times in a week.
Ooh.
What's going on?
Stunning. Absolutely stunning.
And this is actually primetime television. We're not doing a midnight show tonight. I don't know what's going on.
It's kind of crazy, actually.
I have no clue what happened. I don't know what's gotten into us, but I like it. We're back on the air, back where we belong. Got a little bit more of a laid back episode tonight. We had a lot to get into. First episode kind of got carried away. Before I start, boys, let's address the artwork behind Zach's right shoulder.
It's beautiful.
Explanation there.
So that is that's our guy Alex Bregman's response to a question. He did the James Harden fade out. I'm not particularly a fan of James Harden, so that's my favorite thing that he's ever done. And so props to Bregman. I think he pulled it off perfectly.
I guess that's going to become a nice little Houston thing. I wonder if J.J. Watt's going to incorporate that into to an interview after the Pats whoop that ass.
I feel like J.J. Watt cares too much about his reputation, and he would never do that because he thinks it may hurt a reporter's feelings.
Okay, fair enough. So real quick, before we get into tonight's topics, I just wanted to let everybody know that Joe is going on a hot date tonight, but he put the show first. We do have to keep this within a certain time frame so he can make his plans, but we were able to convince him to make it home and get a show up before his nice little date night. So we got some commitment along with the consistency tonight. What is that?
Oh, you can't read it. It's backwards, right?
Gabrielle nearly goes into tears talking about Red Sox something.
Yeah, that's that.
What is this? I don't understand.
She just texted me.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it said Gabrielle nearly goes into tears talking about the Red Sox. She said it happens a lot and quoted it. I just quoted and said, what the fuck?
There was a girl that did that at the LSU football game. She was all over Twitter the last couple of days crying about how much she loves LSU football. And it's like, come on, man, keep it together.
Yeah, come on. Is there really nothing else down there to root for? Come on.
Massive shade thrown towards Zach over there. All right, Ghost.
All right. First topic of the night, not really much to debate. This is just kind of a cool story. Shohei Ohtani. Oh, we got the little pup on air. Oh, sorry to interrupt. But we always have time for a pup.
No? I don't want to go get it. Okay. All right, cool. All right, go ahead. Come on.
So we have the Angels official Twitter account coming out earlier in the day, releasing some information that their professional opinion is that he requires Tommy John surgery. That's just a few days after coming back and finally getting back out there for a start on the mound. He was hitting for a while. He came out and said after the start right away that, he was sore, but it was the typical, coming off his start soreness, nothing to do with the elbow. Obviously, that didn't seem to be true after the Angels released that statement. How does the guy respond? He comes out going 4 for 4 with 2 softball-style home runs, some moonshots. I mean, there's no denying the guy can hit. I just think it's, he's not Babe Ruth. He's never going to be Babe Ruth. Why not just keep him at the plate, get him in the lineup every day, make sure he's healthy? But I just wanted to talk about that real quick. I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, talk about a team that started out hot, really looked like they were going to be in the postseason, especially with all the Ohtani excitement playing alongside Trout. They had a bit of a fall off, and now it's kind of, not a dead season, but it's pretty much the only excitement they've had in the past couple weeks. And it's kind of cool to see a guy basically get told he's not pitching on a mound again this year and comes out and says, yeah, go fuck yourself. Here's 2 bombs for you.
So does that mean that he's pushing back the TJ surgery?
I believe he's going to continue hitting. That's as of right now. It didn't seem to affect his swing the other night. I don't know how much time they're going to give him between games in the lineup. I don't know how they're going to work that situation. With there only being a month left, maybe they let him ride it out and keep swinging. But I mean, paid astronomical amounts of money for this guy. I don't see why you'd risk losing him long term if he is going to continue pitching. But I mean, it's the Angels. I don't know.
Yeah, well, we're only talking a month, but it seems like if you do finish out the season only playing offense and not pitching and postpone the Tommy John surgery because of doing that, then you're also just adding another month to when you could come back from your Tommy John.
Exactly. That could mean he's not eligible to start next season. I mean, is it really is it worth him hitting a couple home runs for the rest of September?
And you're only talking about a month. I think if this would have been determined a month ago, I think you change your decision completely.
100%. Yeah.
But I don't know. That's interesting.
I'm looking here. I don't think it's not impossible, but I don't think they're anywhere near a postseason spot. I mean, the other night they were 15 and a half games out of the second wild card spot in the American League, and it's changed up a little bit since then. The Yankees lost, Oakland won, but I mean, to me, I don't see them winning 20 games and the Yankees and Athletics losing 10 in the same time frame. It's not really realistic. They don't have the staff to go on a run like that. Their lineup's not deep after their first 4 hitters. It sucks to see because it was exciting. Usually you hear a two-way player coming over from another league across the world. I mean, yeah, that's crazy. And he was good. Don't get me wrong. He can deal, but I just don't see a full-time two-way player working in the MLB the way the game's played today. I could be wrong. I don't know. It's just 162 games plus postseason if you make it that far.
Yeah.
I mean, I know as a pitcher, we always talk about wanting to get in there and hit, but realistically, if your job is to pitch once every 5 days and then hit 3 out of the other 4, it's going to catch up to you.
Yeah. Do you think the Tommy John was a result of that, or do you think that was just poor timing? Because it seemed like it happened quickly. I don't know if that would have really been the result of wear and tear.
So I don't know if you guys remember one of the first episodes we ever did, and he came up in conversation. He actually, when he was signed, the team knew he had some stuff going on in his elbow before they even went ahead with the deal, and they were okay with it. Their trainers all said it shouldn't be a factor in his performance. All the players and coaches that he was with from whatever league he played in prior to the majors were like, yeah, we knew he's good. So they went with it. Obviously, didn't really look deep enough into it. I don't know, to be honest with you. You spent that much money on a guy. If you're hoping Trout's going to stay around with him and you need to build around those two, I don't see why you'd put him in the lineup. Just get the surgery now.
Yeah, I agree. I think if playoff chances were on the bubble, I think you'd be dealing with maybe a different scenario. You want that bat in your lineup. But
100%.
if you're looking at, just 20 scrap games for the rest of the season, then no. Bang it. Yeah, bang it. Let him start healing.
I don't know. It's the Angels. I don't know if they're ever going to be top notch in the American League in the near future. I mean, unless they get a solid core around Trout and Ohtani, which I still even don't think their lineup would be deep enough, or their rotation. They got a lot of work to do. I mean, I do like the moves they made. And one of the moves I really liked was Kinsler, who's now on the Red Sox. So they've given up on this year. So I don't know what their plans are for this offseason, but I just don't see any miraculous.
How many pieces do you think they are away from being a genuine contender?
How many years?
Pieces.
Too many.
What's too many? I know it's a lot, but
I mean, you have Mike Trout, the second best in baseball, and all right, we're not going through this. This is not Mookie's the best in baseball, but whatever. I'll give you the best for this conversation.
Hold on, hold on. Let's clarify. You're talking about like at this second in this year only.
Sure. Yeah, we'll go with that.
Yeah, you better be.
Yeah, we'll go with that. So you got Mike Trout, and I mean the gap between after the next best bat in that lineup. I mean, just can you tell me another person in their lineup besides Ohtani?
Well, no, I'm just saying. What do you think?
No, but that's what I'm saying. They're like a full rotation and a full lineup away. It's just too many pieces.
So let's say they get 2 top pitchers and 2 pretty good bats, like top end bats, come this offseason.
You think that's enough to beat the Astros or the Red Sox? No, I don't. I don't think that's nearly enough. No, I really don't. They're starting pitching. You know, they have a couple guys that can be like real good 3 and 4 in the rotation, but they just have a group full of those type of people other than Richards, who's never healthy. It's tough. I mean, it really is because, I truthfully thought they would have a far better season than they did. And, you know, early on, they really were hot. They were actually at the top of the division ahead of the Astros, and I remember getting into that in one of the early episodes. I know standings didn't mean much back then, but they really fell off. They always do. It's tough because you'd think a Los Angeles team with that market would be putting a Dodgers quality team on the field for the American League, but it's never been that way. It's always been a distinct difference between the two, and I think they're too far out. I at this point, I just see what you can get for Trout. What are you doing keeping him there if you're not going to build around him?
You can probably get a lot for Trout.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So why not? I mean, you keep one guy and see him lose every year, or do you get 5 prospects that could all change your lineup in 5 years?
With the signing of Ohtani there, do you really think that they drop Trout? Do you think there's any shot of it, realistically?
I mean, my personal opinion is that the best chance they had to get rid of him was a year or 2 ago. Not that he's lost any value. It's Mike Trout. But now that you've signed Ohtani, you're kind of committed to building the core there. You just signed the best international player available to play with the best American available player. You got to build around that. You're committed now. You've spent enough money. I mean,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, they've pretty much committed to a rebuild. Though I do agree. I feel like if they sell Trout, you can get a shitload for him. And
if you want to get into it like that too, yeah, we know he's got the elbow. He's going to require surgery. Go out on a limb and shop Ohtani. You can get someone to probably be baited by. Just see what you could get. I mean, 2 guys as opposed to an entirely new young lineup and just wait it out 3, 4, 5 years.
That's what I'm saying. You're 5 years away from probably a playoff,
easily
playoff team if you sell those 2 guys.
I mean, barring the Red Sox, Astros, Indians, Yankees, and maybe even Oakland with the way they've been playing, unless they got their entire team, don't re-sign any free agents. I mean, that's the playoffs for the next 5 years. I don't know. Maybe Seattle, if they make a few more additions. They had a kind of great year and then fell off a little bit.
The thing is, Trout is pretty much single-handedly keeping the Angels afloat.
Exactly what I'm saying is like you would think they'd make a stronger effort.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing with Trout there, you don't need a ton around him. He's that dangerous.
No, you get that's why I was saying it early on that the Kinsler moves, those type of things where they brought in guys like Zach Cozart, just veteran presence. They can still play the game consistently. They're not going to hit 350, but they'll be floating around 300. They'll make plays in the field. They'll bring you younger guys up the way they need to be. But they let Kinsler go. I don't know. I think Cozart got hurt for a little while, or he wasn't in the lineup. It just fell off. The wheels fell off. They had a good idea in mind. They didn't really complete the process that they were trying to go about to get some wins this year. I don't think they did enough. They started making moves in the right direction. I guess this offseason you go about it with a similar approach, but I don't know. That's a tough one. I mean, Mike Trout is going to be a top 3 player unless he has a career-ending injury for the next 3 to 5 years, guaranteed. Like guaranteed. You don't need superstars around him. You just need guys that can play and get you some wins, scrap out some wins. He'll do the rest, and you just need some guys to pitch them into games where you can allow Mike Trout's bat to win you a game, or you can allow 6, 7, 8 hitters that are all veteran guys to have a late inning rally and take some pressure off Trout. Like, it's there. The foundation is there. They got to continue building on it, but they're far out, and that's why I don't necessarily say, yeah, trade Trout right now, but it is an option. I don't know. It's tough. Obviously, you don't want to trade Mike Trout, but
yeah, but at some point you got to move on, and I think that it's obviously not as much Trout as it is anything else. But if they move from Trout, Trout has a chance to win somewhere else, and he doesn't necessarily endanger the future of the Angels, because the Angels are not going to be a contender for another 5 years minimum.
Right.
And so if you sell Trout now, where his stock is enormous, you can get a ton back. That's prospects and picks and everything else under the sun. And now you have a team that you can build and prepare for 5 years from now, 6 years from now. Yeah. And they'll be a good team.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Why not just commit to it? If you're not going to win, why sit around and pretend like you're trying to?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one to talk about. I just wanted to open up with the Ohtani thing, but that's a tough situation in LA because not too far down the road, the Dodgers have pretty much an all-star team trying to win a World Series, and it's just such a difference. And I know they're in different leagues. I know they're never going to be like LA versus LA. It's never been like that, but I don't know. It's tough. It's tough because they're in the prime location to be one of the best teams in baseball, and they just never take advantage of that opportunity. You have the best player in baseball on your team, and you're not winning. There's something wrong. But I wanted to move on now. Just a quick little piece. I just thought this was cool. Brandon Phillips called up Tuesday. He's a veteran guy, obviously. I believe he's 37 years old right now. It was his request to come up through the minors and earn his way back up to the bigs. He finally makes it up, and he hits a top of the 8th inning 2-run home run to put the Red Sox up by 1 in a game where they had already come back from a huge deficit and then lost the lead. And he regained the lead. They end up winning the game by 1 run, and I think that's going to be huge. He's not going to play every day. He knows that. He's okay with that. But that's a guy where if you start Devers at third base in the playoffs and he's not hitting, you can throw Phillips out there. He may make 1 or 2 errors because he's used to playing second, but he will hit the ball and he will get on base. And I think that's a great pickup. Along with Kinsler, you got a guy like Holt. You got 2 righty options, a lefty option. Then you got Nunez, who can play anywhere in the infield, who's another righty that's consistent at the plate. I like what the Red Sox are doing. They got their young core of Betts, Benintendi. We're seeing Vasquez back. I think that's good for the pitching staff, not necessarily at the plate, but obviously JD. And then, I really like the Steve Pearce pickup because you have a righty-lefty option at first base, and if one of them's not hitting, the other one can fill in. It's not like Pearce hits well against lefties, obviously, but he can hit right-handed pitching. Moreland, you typically want to see him in there against a righty, but he's not struggling against left-handed pitching either by any means. I think the Red Sox are trying to make a complete roster at every position. Another player that I think is going to come up big in the playoffs may not necessarily catch any games, but Blake Swihart could come up with a few big hits off the bench late in games. I think at every single position the Red Sox have options that they can rely on, not just throwing a guy out there. They can rely on their bench. And I think that's going to be huge in the Houston series when and if they do end up meeting in the postseason. I know they're coming together this weekend. I'm actually going Sunday night. I can't wait to see those two teams face off. But, I just like this Phillips move. I just wanted to talk about it real quick. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I really do feel the Red Sox have set themselves up, and they've built a team similar to the Astros, whereas in positions where they don't have young guys or MVP caliber guys, they've got veteran presence that they can rely on. They have like Josh Reddicks, like players like that, where he's not going to be great, but he'll perform if you need him to come up clutch. And I think that's an area where the Red Sox were lacking last year, and I'm happy to see that they've addressed those. I think the only solidified advantage the Astros have over the Red Sox is that bullpen. So we'll see how that comes into play this weekend and in the postseason as well.
I was going to say, and kind of the overall lineup, no?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that. I'd much rather pitch to the Red Sox lineup than Houston's, but I mean, production-wise, they're both right there. This season at least, they're both right there.
I guess the one problem with that is that if JD Martinez or Mookie Betts has an off day, there's nobody picking them out.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though. These guys like Phillips and Kinsler and Nunez and Bogarts, if he's feeling good, and Moreland, and Benintendi, like you can rely on them to at least pick up some slack. They're not going to produce at the rate of Martinez or Betts, but
yeah, they can pick up some slack, but the guys on the Astros can pick up a hell of a lot more slack.
It also depends on what what lineup you're getting. Last year during the playoffs, that Astros team was unbelievable. Yeah. And so it's like you don't know, are those guys just playoff guys, or was that just a hot streak? Did we just see them in the middle of a hot streak?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. Yeah.
Same thing goes for the Sox this year. How do we know they're going to perform in the playoffs? How do we know they're not going to totally shit the bed?
We don't. I'll be the first to admit that. I don't know. They haven't done well in the postseason the last few years since the 2013 World Series. I'll be the first to admit that. It's been painful to watch. I believe last season they had 96, 97 wins or something like that, and I mean everyone thought we're good, we're going. Mm-hmm. The Astros whooped our fucking ass.
That's what I was gonna say. If the Astros play the same way during this year's playoffs that they did last year, they're taking it all again. They're repeating.
100%.
They were lights out last year, but like I said, was that a product of those guys just being gamers, or was it a product of we just caught them in the middle of a really hot streak? Because we really don't know that yet because we haven't seen them in playoffs enough.
So I got a question, because I'm going to try and word it right. But I don't want to mess this up. But say we're talking like Joe just mentioned. Say a Betts and Martinez aren't hitting. They're 0 for 4, the both of them, and this isn't a playoff game against Houston. Now, same situation. Altuve Correa 0 for 4. Which pitching staff comes up bigger and gets those outs of the guys that aren't a Betts or an Altuve? I still think Houston has that advantage. I really do, bullpen and starting pitching wise.
I agree.
Well, look at last year's performance alone. My guess is David Price is still not a playoff guy. Well, all right, let me reword. I think he's got the talent, he's got the skill to be a playoff guy. I don't think he's.
It doesn't happen always.
It doesn't happen. Yeah,
I don't know. There's just something about it. The dude just can't pitch in the playoffs. I think he doesn't have big balls, which is kind of part of it. He's always been kind of a candy ass when it comes to like dealing with any sort of stress. So I think that playoff baseball for him is just that. It's too much stress, and I think
I agree. I've been the biggest David Price supporter this year. I think he's been crucial with the amount of people that have been in our rotation, in and out. And Chris Sale, he's Chris Sale, but this past month or so, it's been an uneasy feeling for every member of Red Sox Nation. Price has been consistent. He's given us a chance to win every single time he's pitched. But with that being said, he has not performed in the postseason, and I hate to admit that, but I mean, there is a serious question mark after Chris Sale, and you could even make the argument that Chris Sale is a question mark in the postseason. You know, they've monitored his innings pitched this regular season, but if you don't have Chris Sale at Chris Sale caliber performance, can you rely on David Price, Rick Porcello, Eduardo Rodriguez, and a Brian Johnson or Drew Pomeranz to pick up the slack in a playoff series against the Houston Astros?
No.
Not even close. Say Porcello throws lights out, he wins a game for you. Say Price wins one. So you don't have a win in Sale start. You got one game lead, right? Until Sale pitches again, which you don't know if that's going to be good or bad. Mm-hmm. It's just losses. I don't see the Astros losing a game to any of our pitchers not named Sale, Price, Porcello, and even those three, if they're not perfect, I don't know.
I think Sale is the only guy who's going to have a chance at being
dominant
against them. Everybody else is a question mark.
Yeah, and for someone to be dominant against this Houston lineup, I don't think people realize how difficult that is, even for a guy like Chris Sale.
Yeah, no, he's Chris Sale. I mean, we're talking one of the best pitchers in the game, not on the Sox, on the American League, in the game.
Yeah.
So you throw Sale, and that's your only. And even then, even at that, who are they going to throw game one? You think?
Game one.
Game one. So you're talking a dominant pitcher who has shown dominance for years.
Against the postseason. Verlander has shown it in the postseason.
Exactly. And against Sale, who has been decent in the postseason, but dominant overall.
He looked good last year against the Astros, but even still, as good as he was, didn't wow the Astros. Yeah. They still hit him.
I think they shut him down at the end of this year with that injury.
So here's my thing. Yeah, I'm glad you put that in quotations. Is this similar to what like the Sox used to do with Pedro, where he's got like a finger or an elbow soreness or a shoulder soreness?
Absolutely.
I mean,
dude, it's common knowledge at this point for anybody that watches baseball that Chris Sale just at the end of the season gets exhausted. He does. He's not a big guy. He's throwing all these innings, all these pitches, so he's going to get tired. It's just biology.
What I don't like is that he came back for one start, went right back on. He missed, I think, two starts.
Well, you got to keep him. You got to keep him loose somehow.
I'm
not 100% saying that he wasn't sore or anything.
Sure he was sore. Yeah.
What I'm saying is, he's your best asset, and year after year, he's shown that as soon as he hits the end of the season, he falls off a cliff.
Well, he's never had the chance to until he came to Boston, and it showed drastically.
Yeah, it was not. It's not due to his own fault. It's just he gets tired. He throws a lot of innings, so you got to rest the guy. I think it's fine. Whatever, rest him. There's no need to pitch him right now anyway. But whether he comes back now and performs is a different case. I think he was exhausted, but I think the rest might have done him well. Hopefully, but it's all about the behind the scenes work. If he's not staying in shape while everything's going on, then it's just going to be another repeat.
Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping we can get to an episode early next week to really cover how this series goes down this weekend. I think it's quite obvious this is a preview of a late postseason matchup, assuming the Sox win their first series and the Astros win their first series. I don't know. It's going to be interesting because obviously the stakes aren't going to be as high this weekend, but I think there still will be a playoff atmosphere at Fenway. The fans are going to be into it. The fans know that this is probably a matchup we're going to see down the road. And I am interested to see how this team reacts because the Red Sox are hot right now, and everyone in the clubhouse is getting along well with one another. It's a great team. But same can be said for the Astros. And when it comes down to pure talent, which I know that's not all that it takes to win a baseball game, the Astros are better on paper, on the field. I know the records don't show it. The Red Sox have more wins, but
different game.
Yeah, and I just don't think people are realizing that the Astros played pretty similar last year. They won a lot of games, but they turned it on late when they had to. And I just haven't seen the Sox really flip the switch like that. Yeah, they've had games where they'll come back late and it almost feels like you can feel them smelling a comeback. But I haven't seen that consistently. I don't know. I'm interested to see what happens this weekend. I think if the Sox can win 2 out of the 3 games, that would be huge, both mentally and statistically for both teams. You got Houston trying to hold their lead. I don't think they'll lose it, but the Red Sox kind of just have to not fuck themselves, and they got the division. So this weekend's going to be big for both clubs. But if we can come away with a 2-1 series lead, I think that's going to at least put us in a better position for when we meet them down the road in October.
That's for you. Zach's taking the opposite. He's hoping the opposite.
What?
He wants the Stros to win this one.
Oh, Zach?
No, I couldn't care less. But what I was going to say is that the players are taking this weekend seriously, just from a pride standpoint.
Yes.
So
there's buzz going into this weekend. And look at the picture over your shoulder.
Any sort of even, which I guess the Red Sox have it more locked up than the Astros do in their division, but the Red Sox aren't gonna be thinking, oh, we have a large lead, we can relax this weekend. No, both of those teams are gonna come out balling. So it'll be good baseball to watch. It'll be great baseball to watch, but I personally don't care who wins.
So I think which kind of went unnoticed, that last game of the Braves series, Cora threw out a lineup that had a lot of people question what he was thinking, and they pulled off the win. So I think that was his attempt at resting all the big guys in preparation for this weekend. They had the travel day today. That's basically 2 days off for the big guys. And you can't say that a 3-game home series with the Astros on a weekend with the Sunday night game being on ESPN, that has something to do with it. You can't,
this series is all for bragging rights and
going into the postseason.
Well, yeah, and it's also for that extra swagger in your step whenever that's what I mean. In the playoffs. It's. Think about if one of the teams gets swept this weekend. Now you're going into the playoffs. You're not holding on to that, but at the back of your mind, you're like, these guys did just kind of kick our ass 3 games in a row too.
Yeah,
whether you want to or not, it's human nature.
Yeah. Let's talk about bragging rights because you got teams that that you can roll over. Like the one team that I was nervous about was Oakland, to be honest, because they looked good. They owned the Red Sox.
Yeah,
they owned the Red Sox. So that was the one team as a Sox fan that made me nervous all year. But if the Sox win the series and the Astros beat the piss out of them, all of a sudden all Sox fans are going to get a rude awakening because the playoffs are a different story. You're not playing in your division the whole time.
Right.
So the Sox are.
I don't want people to get it twisted. The Yankees are in our division, and that's been it this year. That really, I mean, Tampa's given us trouble, but the Yankees have struggled with Toronto and Tampa. So it's not like there's, and the Astros division's the same way. I mean, Seattle's given them a push, but, and I mean, I don't know. This series is, I think it's a lot bigger than some are noticing, and I agree with the swagger aspect of it, but, I remember watching, and this was early in the year, Sean Manaea against the Red Sox no-hitter. I don't want to see him pitch against the Red Sox if we were presented with a wild card game situation. I know that's crazy. It's probably a one-time thing, but I would much rather know who we're facing and prepare for it like that because, Oakland is scary. But Oakland's in Houston's division. They're 2.5, I think maybe 3.5. I'm not sure. I got to double check that. But they're right there. So if the Sox can pull off a sweep, hypothetically, and Oakland wins 2 games against the Yankees, that completely changes everything.
Yeah.
Then you got the Astros fighting for the wild card spot. I mean, that's insane. But I mean,
yeah, a lot of things change in the series, but I think the most important thing, or the biggest aspect of the things to take into account here, is the mental boost that you get going to the playoffs. Like Zach mentioned, you get to walk around swinging your dick around like you're the biggest thing and the biggest force in the world walking into the playoffs, because you know the only team that's supposed to give you trouble are these guys you're facing. And that's on both sides of the field here. So if you come in and you sweep them or you dominate in 2 out of 3 games, all of a sudden you're like, here we go. It's going to be round 2 next year, or it's going to be, this is our year. So you get, that's the biggest part. As much as the standings matter and everything else, I think the team that goes out and hits 6 home runs in this series is going to be the team that comes away, standing tall, being big. It's who's going to show off the firepower the most. And I think that's why the rest had come in. And I do think that the Astros have the swagger advantage, if you want to say, between the guys.
That's tough, though. That's tough to say right now. With the way
I think the difference is the Red Sox have like, oh yeah, we played really well this year. Nobody can touch us. We're real good this year. Where the Astros are like, did you guys see us last year? Do you see us this year? Like, we did this already. We're going to do it again. Like,
it's too different. Yeah. But I will say, though, what I have seen in the Red Sox, bench-wise, dugout-wise, clubhouse-wise, whatever you want to call it, I didn't see this last year. And the team was good last year, but I didn't see what we're seeing this year. So I think
it's more fun this year. They look like they're having more fun this year, which is great.
Right. No,
that seems to be a very broad, common thing right now in the MLB. It looks like every team's really enjoying themselves. I don't know if I've seen as many clubs. Yeah. I don't know if I've seen as many clubs in recent years that honestly every single one of them looks like they're having the time of their life.
Right.
It's so weird to watch, but it makes the games more enjoyable.
Yeah, it does. But I think if you look at the type of excitement and fun that both teams are having, I think the Astros have this feeling about them that, to me, it seems scary. If I'm a pitcher going into that series and I see these dudes having this much fun, but still being like, we're here to win, we're here to
still locked in.
Like they know. Whereas the Red Sox, I feel like watching them, it's like watching a high school team that's really good or a college team that's really good. They're just having fun with it. The Astros look like a pro team that's so good at what they do that they can have fun on the side.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It's business first, but they have fun when they're getting their business
They're
done.
so good that they're not even enjoying the fact that they're good. They're just having fun on the side. And they're that good that it makes up for it.
And what the scary thing for me is that we're talking about this team, this Houston Astros team that we're all in agreement on that could absolutely wipe the Red Sox again this year in the postseason, given the right circumstances. And they haven't even won their division yet. Like they're still fighting to win the division. As are the Red Sox, but it's not as close. Right. That's what's
exactly
scary.
what I'm talking about. Is this season apart, all of us have the same feeling that the Astros are just something about them, and it's got to be mental because it's not statistical. So
yeah, it's mental.
There's something that they've done, and I think that it was just the absolute beating they put on everybody last year, and then how easy they've got to their record this year while still having so much fun in the process. Like no one's.
I think there was a stretch for a while where they weren't winning games, and then all of a sudden it just a switch flipped, and it's the old Astros team that we saw last year, even better.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like they're just that good. They turned it on, and you're like, shit. Here they come. It's this big train that is just coming through, and the Red Sox are in the way. So they're either going to fight back, or we're going to see the Astros just absolutely run them again. I think the Red Sox have that freshman cocky attitude toward them because they're playing really well this year, which is good. They need it because That's the only thing that's going to get them through. Whereas the Astros have that senior approach where it's like, all right, we can have fun on the side, but we're here to do some damage. Right. I know it sounds crazy, but that's just that's what I get from them.
Yeah, I agree with you there. All right, let's flip the switch a little bit before we go too deep into that, because I want to save some of this for after this weekend.
If we ever get back on a show.
No, we will. I promise.
Before we go too deep in that, you mean before we cross the 45th minute?
Yeah, Jesus Christ. Oh, my God. Yeah, we'll wrap up soon.
Yeah, I know you got your date, bud. Don't worry. There's two things that I really do want to talk about tonight. We, again, don't have to spend too much time on them. This one is just a real quick story that I thought was kind of cool, kind of sucks, but would have been kind of cool. Vlad Guerrero Jr. created a lot of noise in the minors this year. He was hitting 410. Now, he's 19 years old. This is in Double-A, so it's not the pro level yet, but, I mean, it's Double-A baseball. He's hitting 410 on the season. Sidelined for 5 weeks due to a patella tendon strain in his left knee in early June. Came back, wasn't hitting the same after a few rehab assignments, and when he returned to Double-A and a promotion to Triple-A, he again brought that average up to 400 as late as August 12th. And in the final weeks of that minor league season, he went 22 for 72 in the last 18 games, which dropped him down to 381. And he was 7 hits short of finishing the season hitting 400, which has not been done in quite some time. Don't know if we'll ever see that again, but I just thought that was kind of crazy because, you know, he created a lot of noise this year in the minors, and no one really had too big of an eye on him. Everyone kind of just knows he's going to be good when he gets up to the bigs. But guy almost hit 400 for an entire season.
How old is he? Isn't he like
19?
Yeah,
19.
I mean, that's insane.
It's ridiculous.
It's
and I
insane.
just had to say that. We don't have to really say too much on that because I'm pretty sure everyone can agree at how difficult that is to do no matter what level you're playing to hit 400 for an entire season that long. But
that's insane.
I'd keep an eye on him. That's all I'll say is I'll keep an eye on him. So moving on to one of the topics that has to be addressed. I feel like he's a Cy Young winner every year. Max Scherzer, his 5th straight season with 250 strikeouts. The only other person to ever do that for that long is Mr. Randy Johnson. I mean, the reason I'm addressing this first and not the next thing I want to talk about is because this kind of ties into my next question, which is more of a debate that I have for both of you guys, which has been debated pretty much all season long. I mean, those numbers, you can't argue. He's at the top of the Cy Young conversation.
Yeah.
But bringing me to my next topic, I guess we can talk about both of them at the same time. Jacob deGrom, his 25th straight start, giving up 3 runs or fewer, and that's breaking Doc Gooden's previous club record. And again, this is in the National League where you also have Aaron Nola, who's been lights out this year. How do you pick a Cy Young?
All 3 of those guys are in the same division.
Yes. My question basically before we debate, with the Mets being so shitty, has deGrom performed well enough to still win the Cy Young? Do you have to give it to Scherzer for showing consistency? Or do you go with the young guy in Nola who's kind of just wowed everybody he's seen?
Well, so I'm going to start with the deGrom thing. I was reading something that said if he continues pitching his average innings per start for the remainder of the season, which I think he's going to get maybe 4 more starts. I'm not sure what it was, but if he continues at his average per start and he allows 2 or less runs total, he'll break the ERA record. That's where he is now. Yeah. The ERA record.
Wow.
Now, so obviously, more innings pitched means more runs can be allowed and vice versa. But I think you start there. If that happens and he breaks the ERA record, I don't even think it's a debate anymore.
No, 100%.
You have to win.
Question. That's insane. That's ridiculous.
So and now you're asking the guy to allow 2 runs in a month, but if he does that, which I kind of want to see, he's He's gonna break the record.
It's a virtual walk at that point.
Yeah, it's something like I forgot what his ERA would be, but it's like 1.5.
Yeah. Let me see if I got it right here. I was looking the other day.
Well, right now it's like 1.68. I'm talking about it would drop a little bit more, just enough to get below all time.
When it comes to pitching for the Cy Young, I'm a big believer in the fact that Cy Young means best pitcher. It doesn't mean most wins.
Well, no, and that's the crazy thing is he could end up with a losing record.
That's what I'm saying. So I think
and break the ERA record. That is insane to me.
Which is why I wanted to talk about this, because the guy is like, you can't question any team he goes to, arguably including teams like the Red Sox, the Dodgers, where they already have a solidified ace. He is the ace. I think he is that good. He is just on the New York Mets.
Last year, he had a perfect inning in the All-Star game.
Yeah. And, I mean, again, it sucks because the Mets were a team when everyone was healthy. Syndergaard, Javi, him. They just never – none of them were ever healthy together. They couldn't string together. They brought in Cespedes to try and solidify the lineup, and it never worked out where everyone was healthy. When they were all on the field, they played great, obviously, but that never happened. With that being said, and the Mets having a history of being a losing team over recent years, I feel like what DeGrom is doing is being overlooked far too much. But that's kind of why I'm asking this question, is because on the opposite side, you have Max Scherzer, who plays on a team that wins a lot more games, not necessarily championships, obviously. He hasn't done that for Washington, but that's not on him, I wouldn't say. But a guy that's been on a club that's won more consistently over recent years, and you almost feel that it's like, do we give it to this guy again?
So I don't think any seasons past should weigh in on it, but I feel like they always kind of do.
That's
in the sense of certain musicians are going to always be up for album of the year, even when their album is garbage. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which I'm not by no means saying Scherzer's season's been garbage. He's been incredible. If you look at the numbers, him versus Nola, they're very, very similar. Scherzer's got strikeouts. Their records are about the same. Nola has a worse batting average against, but a lower ERA. And so they're really all kind of toss-ups.
It's kind of worked out weird that over the past, I think there was 3 weeks or 2 weeks between, but they actually started against one another twice, and Nola had the edge.
Yeah, Nola did have the edge. And it's crazy to see because the Phillies put up 2 on Scherzer, but for the most part, Nola's had terrible run support.
Yeah.
If you watch him pitch, there's some games he'll throw 8 innings and get a no decision.
And again, that's why it's like
that should never come into play.
No. But these teams, now we're talking, these teams are in the same division. So
yeah, all 3 of them.
I mean, I'm trying to find the numbers here in front of me. I got a ton of papers in front of me, but other than Philadelphia, who's fighting with Atlanta, I don't see Washington making a push. They have a team that could do it, obviously, but they just haven't gelled well. You get 3 teams, and if Phillies obviously had the edge this year, not by much, but they have. But they're at the bottom of their division. So we're talking about 3 absolute aces who are on teams that probably wouldn't have as many wins as they do without them. But even still with them, they're not great.
Still not winning. Yeah.
Yes. So it's kind of an odd discussion because, Kershaw hasn't been a complete season, so he's not in the discussion like he usually is for this year. So it is these 3 guys. And
do you know who has pitched more innings off the top of your head?
Off the top of my head, no.
Out of those 2 guys you're talking about, of Scherzer and Nola? Okay. So Scherzer has, I think, 13 more innings than Nola, but I don't know DeGrom's. I was just looking at a website that had their numbers combined. That's the only way I knew all those.
For me, when I look at the Cy Young, I think best pitcher is the first thing that comes to mind, and then the most workload. So
Scherzer's got Scherzer's got 13 more innings, one more start. So that means you can give him probably, 5 games that he had another inning over Nola. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if I worded that well, but.
I think they'll even out too if Nola's got 3 or 4 more starts and hopefully Scherzer only's got 2 or 3, they'll even out and start.
Total. Yeah, but I'm when I talk workload, I mean who are they pitching against?
Right.
Because I think that should come into play. If DeGrom is facing, for instance, I know it's not happening, but DeGrom has the Sox and the Yankees lineup where Scherzer has, I don't know,
the Marlins and fucking
pretty much.
There's you're comparing strength of schedule.
Exactly.
Chris Sale versus DeGrom, you know.
Correct. So I'm thinking that when I'm picking my Cy Young, I'm looking at dominance as a pitcher, and I'm not necessarily saying strikeouts. Strikeouts shouldn't be dominance as a pitcher. Dominance as a pitcher should be ERA. I'm a big fan of WHIP. I know a lot of guys aren't, but I'm a big fan of WHIP when it shows the skill of a pitcher, dominance of a pitcher, because it breaks down no matter how many innings you've thrown. But a big one for me is workload. So if a guy has thrown 10 innings and has a tremendous ERA as opposed to a guy who's thrown 100 innings with a tremendous ERA, the ERA should be wiped out because the 100 innings means more to a team than the 10. I don't care if you're a closer or if you're not. That 100 innings is big. So if your workload is bigger, I think that you should have a bigger consideration for the award. Your stats don't necessarily have to be dominant over the next person, but I think workload, ERA, and WHIP are big.
And I think this is going to be the first time in quite a few years where you got 3 guys that all, I'd say, are pretty equally deserving. And this is where it's going to come down to not just the numbers. There's going to be all these strength of schedule and opponents that do come into play, because if you don't consider that stuff, I mean, I guess on paper the guy would look like it would be Scherzer, but in my personal opinion, despite how great Nola has been, I think you got to give it to DeGrom, but you can make a solid case for every single one of those 3 guys. And that's why I think it's important to note that, like, it could very well come down to the people who decide, they're going to be comparing, well, who did they face in each start and who was the opposing pitcher and how many guys that were normally superstars had a day off against this guy when he pitched and shit like that, where normally wouldn't matter because if a guy is the Cy Young candidate and he's that dominant, he just wins it. But there's too much that comes into play this year.
I think
Joe, on your workload, I just looked it up. So DeGrom has the same amount of starts as Nola. Scherzer has 1 more start, and DeGrom is directly in the middle of the 2 in innings pitched. So about 5 or 6 more than Aaron, and then about 5 or 6 below Scherzer.
Okay, so they're all pretty close.
But his ERA is
significantly lower,
half a point lower than both of those guys. So I mean,
so that's
right now. I don't even think it's up for debate. Even
no, I think DeGrom gets it, but I like Mikey was saying. I think that all of this stuff is going to come into play this year, and I think it's actually good for the game and for the fans because in recent years, especially, we've been debating, what does MVP mean? Is it the most valuable player to the team, or is it the best player overall?
Right.
And I think this little debate here with the best pitcher this year, I think that can kind of help fans figure out what's going on, because I don't even think the writers know what's going on. They vote for who they like.
And I hate that shit because
it's the baseball writers are as dumb as the rest of us when it comes to it. It should. Yeah. I mean, what it should be is the players should vote because the players see these guys. They do it all the time. Players should be voting, not the writers. The writers are just as stupid as the rest of us. So when it comes to this year, I think it's going to be huge because we're going to get to see all of these other factors come into play to decide who's the best, not just the best stats, because the best stats don't reflect the player or how good of a season he's having. It's schedule and it's workload and it's all of these other factors that come into play that shows how good these players are and how good of a season they're having. Because I could go out and have a tremendous year, but if Zach goes out against 10 times better teams every time and has the same year or slightly below mine, his was more impressive. that's just how I feel about it. That's
Yeah.
I feel that a guy who is pitching against lesser teams shouldn't even be in the conversation if the guy is putting up similar or just below the numbers against better teams.
So
Well, the funny thing about that though is that they're all three of them are in the same
in the
division.
division, that's
Yeah,
what I was
yeah.
gonna say. They're pitching against each other.
So it's exactly
know.
the same for them.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. We're going to see all these different factors come into play this year. It's going to be awesome during.
It's very cool.
On MLB Network, they're going to be debating this stuff, and it's going to be fantastic because there's really no big answer other than DeGrom's ERA is absolutely stellar.
Yeah. I mean, I hope he goes. I hope he goes lowest of all time. That would just be the coolest.
So do I. I think it'd be awesome,
thing to watch.
especially because the Mets are so hard,
So bad. So bad.
that it would be awesome for them to have a guy like this that's just a diamond in the rough kind of thing.
And I hope they put up like 5 or 6 runs in his last 3 or 4 starts to at least give him the chance.
So that's what I was going to ask about. So, in the locker room, they're not talking about, or at least not to DeGrom, about what he's on the cusp of, right?
Yeah.
Everyone knows that they're not bringing that up to him. But they have that extra little boost of like, okay, we know we're not going to get in the playoffs. Let's see if we can do this for this dude. What if they go on an insane hot streak for the next 3 weeks and give that to DeGrom?
That'd be awesome.
Insane.
Makes the decision a lot easier too.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
The funny thing, which I think, I mean, it just so happened that Severino didn't have a year in the AL, but other than maybe Edwin Diaz, who's a closer, which I'm really iffy about closers winning the Cy Young, Chris Sale is like by far the top candidate, and he sat out for a month.
Workload.
Exactly.
Workload.
No, I agree. I don't think closers should win the Cy Young unless they literally don't blow a save all year.
Hey, even if they don't blow a save all year, if you show me their innings compared to everybody else, I guarantee you Chris Sale's number of innings where he hasn't allowed a run is the same as the closers. So,
Right.
Workload. Sale has done more of it. He's done it for longer periods of time. He's done more innings, more batters, more pitches. All about workload with me. I want to see a guy continuously show dominance over time.
All right, as always.
It's like giving a kicker the Heisman.
Yeah.
Because he hit a bunch of good kicks doesn't mean
he
like.
didn't miss one all year. It doesn't mean he was the most important part of that.
Exactly.
Run.
But that's why they give position-specific awards too, for that reason.
Yeah,
Because you can't compare certain things.
Yeah.
But Cy Young is the best pitcher. It is the pitcher who was the best at his job. And you cannot be the best at your job if you pitched a tenth of the innings as somebody else.
Yeah. The funny thing about that was from a reliever's perspective, I was always under the impression of if nobody knows who I am, I'm doing a great job.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
Because as a reliever, if you're not the closer, even if you are the closer, you're not going to be in the talks of all these, MVP awards and all this other stuff. But if you're coming out and blowing leads all the time, everyone's going to be talking about you. So I was like, let me just be unknown. No one knows me.
As always, we get through an episode and we always have some stuff that's more prominent than others that we talk about. Episode 9 was titled Consistency. I think it very well could have been titled Workload because our whole show should be called Consistency. It's
Next one.
If we can turn out a third episode quickly in this stretch, episode 10 title Workload.
Workload.
All right.
Workload. I like it.
So then let's air this out right now because it's near impossible to get a hold of all 3 of us on the weekends. Do you want to stick to a Tuesday, Thursday schedule for now?
What if we I don't know.
Let's see how it goes.
All right, fine.
I'm good for Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah, there we go. We
Well,
go
you know
early.
what? We'll shoot for Monday then so we can recap the Sox series. If not, we have Tuesday as a backup plan.
True. Monday it is.
All right, you guys, you heard it here first. We are going to stick with this theme of consistency. We're going to get a third episode. And, if we get it in Monday, that's technically 3 episodes in a week, boys.
That's workload.
That's workload.
It's a mean workload.
That is what the episode should have been titled. So I'm going to leave it at that. We've said what we had to say. when you are thinking about the NL Cy Young, we are considering workload, and we're always considering it here at Comic Relievers. We're gonna get a third one out in a week if we can. If not, it'll be 8 days, basically a week, kind of the same thing.
Go for a week. Let's go.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
3 in a week.
3 in a week.
All right, Monday it is. I'll keep everyone up to date on the Comic Relievers Twitter page, and I'll have Zach and Joe tweet some stuff out. We really didn't promo this one. We only talked about it in the last episode, which happened at midnight. So I don't know how many people got the message to send the questions in. So we'll really promo the next few. But yeah, we'll recap the big series coming up this weekend. We'll do an updated standings like we always do real quick because there's a couple series this weekend that are going to change things up a little bit. But let's wrap this up for now. Joe's got his hot date soon. He's got to get all the way over to Revere to get to the movies.
Right.
So we'll let him get on his way. He's got about 25 minutes, 30 with the previews. So he's got time.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yep.
All right, boys, as always, this was a good one. Everybody else, thank you for tuning in. We will be back Monday. For now, Monday. 3 in a week. That's workload. And that's how we're ending it tonight. 3 in a week. That's the workload here at Comic Relievers. Good night, everybody.